So I think we should just in this platform number, who knows, 13 or whatever it is, talk about God, praise God, seeing God in all things, and just go from there.
Yeah.
So, well, let's talk. So, how's everything going?
I mean, things.
Far reach.
Yeah, I know.
No, it's cool. It's cool.
Here, I can hold it.
No, it works.
Okay, sorry.
My break if you touch it.
Things have been pretty rocky, but I try to look at things twofold. I try to look at things as a big picture, and then things as a small, detailed picture. So and I think that plays in part with the praising God, because when things aren't looking good in the very detailed day to day, like the minute to minute, I can step back and look at the whole and be like, you know what? Everything's great. Like, things are going real well. And they say, you've heard the saying, it's darkest right before the dawn. And, I think I've probably been saying this for
10 years.
a few.
It's a long night, huh?
It's been a long season, dude. I feel like I'm in Alaska.
Where's that sun,
Yeah.
man?
I see the light at the end of the tunnel. No, but what we're doing is, both of us have different levels of change that need to be made, right? That we're trying to change. And mine, like, regardless of what yours is, mine is catastrophic. Like, I'm trying to change things about myself that are embedded in my upbringing, and my deep in my subconscious.
Yeah.
So it's not fun,
No, it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's it's been getting harder. Certain things which I am grateful for, because I know that I feel like that's where, because I'm close to a breakthrough. But I will tell you this, like, I am going through a very difficult financial season right now. I'm about to switch jobs and just trying to catch up with all my payments. And I just took that vacation, and so staying positive with all of the reality of bills to be paid, money coming in, money going out, is so tough. But I have been doing such a great job. And that, how last time we spoke, you talked about like bad thoughts coming in. I don't know how you phrased it, but like bad thoughts coming in, negative thoughts coming in, and however you said it, I said it like, acknowledge them, thank you, goodbye.
Right. Yeah.
And I cannot believe that it is, since last time we talked, and this started happening on the drive home. I like resonated with what you said, because I was like, oh yeah, Bruce says that, like, in John Ashraf, like, when thoughts come in, like, recognize them, acknowledge them, and then say thank you and goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so it's only been less than 2 weeks
Since the last.
yeah, and
Recording.
it is my new norm. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It is crazy. I am having triggers of thoughts which would normally take me down a rabbit hole of destruction or negativity, and without even trying, I'm like, thanks, no. And it's like crazy, man, how awesome that is.
Yeah.
And so so that part's been going good. And so if I look at my life as a whole, from where I was several months ago to now, everything's great on the grand scheme. Mm-hmm. But as far as the day to day, like, once I get over this financial valley, man, things are looking really good.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned, like, how when you're in the details, it seems like it could be you're so overwhelmed. Yeah. And I was thinking about, when you said that, how you're working on something like a puzzle, or you're trying to figure something out, even there might be 2 or 3 of you, and then somebody pops in and says, oh, hey, you guys do it like this, and you're like, Yeah, there's the answer. How did we not see that? Because we were so focused on the little tiny details. And so yeah, that feeling, just being having all that overwhelming, being what do they call it, over encumbered with like all these little things that distract. And then we were talking, because we've been talking a lot about subconscious programming and how it's a process, because we get really excited about hearing it. You click on a video, especially when you're coming into it for the first time. You get all this knowledge and you say, wow, that's so, it hypes me up. It hypes me up. And it's like, okay, now you got to actually play it out. And it doesn't take a day or two. It takes a lot of time. And that reminded me of, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, I worked on a ship as a deckhand. It was like a ship that was like a 7 or 8 day tour, and they did the New England Islands. And I remember, as a deckhand, you go up to the wheelhouse, if it was on your schedule. Every deckhand had it on their schedule, either from like 10 to 12 or whatever the time was, in the middle of the night sometimes. You had to go to the wheelhouse and ask permission to relieve the helm. There'd be another deckhand, and so you go up, and it's just a pilot house where the pilot is the captain steering the ship. Yeah, the wheelhouse. Yeah, and so there'd be a deckhand in there, and it's a block of schedule. It's not all the time, because sometimes it's just the captain, of course, and then the skipper. And so you go up there and you go permission to relieve the helm, and then he gives you permission, and then you go up in this boat. The ship was about 180 feet. And I remember the wheelhouse, the wheel, it was a toggle about this big. It was literally a little toggle that sat on the panel, and that was how you steered the ship, and you just went left and right. And it was literally like 3 or 4 inches long, and there was 2 instruments on the instrument panel, 2 gauges. One gauge showed you where the rudder was at, literally at the moment where it was at. And then another gauge was where you wanted the rudder to be. And so once let's just say you wanted to go 24 degrees north or whatever, you take it there, and then you'd see that rudder follow, because it doesn't just whip there, it just slowly goes. And I remember how it wasn't very intuitive, because the intuitive part was you wanted to have an immediate reaction. And so and then if you're going and you saw lobster traps, like lobster buoys, and you had to avoid them so they don't get caught up in the prop. So you had to avoid it, and you would turn, and then the boat would start to you would see that gauge go, and then you'd see this boat starting to slowly go, but then you wanted to correct. And so you were and it's so funny, because you could see your pattern, because if you went to the back of the ship, you know if there was an amateur steering, because there'd be that big the snake in the water of the trail where the boat went. And so that reminded me of like subconscious programming, where your consciousness, you have a thought of where you want to go, and then your subconscious, and if you keep focusing on it with your conscious, the subconscious is like, okay, well, let me get there, and it's like going, but then you're like, oh, it's not getting there fast enough, it's something else. And then the boat it's like the subconscious following the conscious. And but yeah, so that's the challenge. The challenge is letting that law, I would even call it the law of, like, not germination, but manifestation. I don't even know what the law really is. I mean, you call it the law of attraction, whatever, but that process, that from A to B, there's that time. And so it's like you have to be very patient within that time frame in order to start seeing results. And you say, okay, well, this works. Yeah. And so, but it's like where the mind goes, the body will follow. Same principle. But so yeah, that was funny. Not funny, but interesting to think about. So details, man. So when you focus on the details, here's a good question. What do you use as the big picture? Are you using it as a reference of time? What is the big picture to you? Just like a vision of the future? How do you get out of not focusing on the details? What's your tactic for that? So that you don't start correcting the turn of the ship too quick.
The big picture for me is this idea of how it's a perspective of time, and how, so when I when I moved out to LA, I was there for 5+ years. Okay, so 5+, it was more like 6 years of my life. 6 years is a long time. Mm-hmm. When I was there, whatever, it was all relative because it was, just current time. But in hindsight, when I look back, I'm thinking like, man, I was out there for 6 years. It felt like that. If somebody else came up to me and was like, hey, I'm thinking about moving, but I don't know, I'm worried and I've never done it or whatever. And, I don't want to waste my life or whatever, like waste any time. Like, it's nothing. Go out there and do it. I mean, you can go out there and spend 4 or 5 years, 6 years, anywhere you want. And it goes back like that. And then same thing when I remember when I was born again out in California, then I moved back. I wanted to get as much knowledge as I could about Jesus and the Bible. So fastest way to do that in my thought process was college, Bible college. So I enrolled and I was like, oh my gosh. I remember sitting in the computer thinking, 4 years. This is going to take 4 years. And then got my bachelor's and, graduated, and you look back at it and it's done. It goes like that. And so when I'm going through things that are difficult in the details, I zoom out and I look at those things, which I call them anchors.
Oh yeah.
And so, like I'll do that with things that God's done for me before, like in ways that I've seen God show up, miraculously. I call those anchors, and that way I can go back to those spots and remember, oh, he did this then, or whatever type of anchor, and it's grounded. It's just something I've done in my life, referred to those things as anchors. And so I can zoom out and look at the big picture. And the big picture, as far as not getting stressed out because of the day-to-day, the big picture really has to do with, okay, this season's going to pass. I'm not going to be here forever. And then it's twofold. It's, man, look at what I have. Mm-hmm. Like, look at my kids, look at my vehicles and my tools and my, clothes and things that I have in my possession. And so then to be grateful for those, to step back. And then, but also too, like to answer your question a little bit more detailed as it pertains to subconscious reprogramming. So let's say I've got 10 things on my schedule every day that I want to hit. And that's part of my subconscious reprogramming and new habits. Mm-hmm. Working out, getting up at 6 a.m., cooking my kids breakfast, doing those things. Let's say I only hit 6 a day. Okay, so we've talked about this before, but it's real easy to get bogged down. And let's say you miss the first 3. It's so easy to be like, oh, screw the other 7, I'm already behind. But then if you look back and you hit 7 of the 10, in the big picture is like, oh my gosh, the old me wouldn't have hit any.
Yeah. So it's important to recall that, because that's how you can detect change. Yeah. I just left off the recorder, accidentally powered off. I just left off where you were saying this will pass as one. So, and I forget who said it. I don't know if it was Churchill or somebody said. There's a moment who said, written somewhere, he said, "This too shall pass." Like everything. Well, no, I'm speaking of it. Well, it probably is in the Bible. I can't. I don't know the specific verse, but there was a well-known politician, or I think a president, who said it. Anyway, I could be wrong, but anyway, they said this too shall pass, and it's a good thing to hold on to. And even I remember reading in the book of Walden, Thoreau said when he was about to leave the cabin that he was staying at for that duration, he said, even as good as the cabin was where he was at, because he had a wonderful experience waking up every day, being with nature and all that, he even said in the book, thank heaven for here is not all the world. At that place, even in a place of very good, it's the goodness is knowing that there's more out there. There's gonna be more snares, gonna be more situations, and so that it's important to never get attached to any situation, except for the one. There's only one thing to be attached to, which is God, which is the Alpha and the Omega, where in God's universe, bad things and good things happen, good times and bad times. But it's always fluctuating. And so you could get stuck. Any person can get stuck in a difficult situation and remain there because, again, through the law of attraction, through programming, they stay there. But it's like, you don't have to identify with it. And if you keep giving, and I remember you said this a couple of recordings ago, you said, wisdom is memories without the feelings attached. Is that correct? Yeah. Or wisdom is experience without the feeling attached. Something like that, which is so powerful because it's so important to not let feelings, especially bad ones, get too. It's important to not get too identified with it or value them too much or get that feel good feeling, even when you're in bad times or good times, because they pass. And so, I mean, people who they attach themselves to things too much, and then it might be taken away, and then they do really bad things, like things that they can't take back from doing it. And so, so that for me is very important. And the beauty part is it's not a trick. It's not a cognitive trick. Because it seems like a lot of the stuff that we do talk about are like these like tactics you have to use, and you have to be constantly like, okay, I'm trying to like cheat the system or like try to be very what's the word, like tactical or scheming, and manipulative.
But at a fair point, it's this kind of idea, fake it till you make it. So it's like, this is where you want to go.
Yeah. Oh, see, that's awesome you said that. That's awesome you said that, because fake it till you make it. So here's the thing, and I think this is a really good point, because we can be like, man, I'm in a really bad position in my life. I don't like my circumstances, and so I have this vision of where I want to be. Close your eyes, build the vision board, right? Put where you want to be and all that stuff. And then if things tend to not necessarily get there quick enough or whatnot, we kind of fall back. And so I think in the way, this is how I conduct my life now, is that, yeah, I have goals and I have visions and things, but what I'm always focused on is that light, is God. Mm-hmm. So nothing matters in a positive sense. Yeah. I'm not careless. I'm just not concerned. Yeah. And I think for me, that has been the most powerful thing to be my, I don't want to call it identity, but just my focus. Yeah. And it's almost as if a thing that you click into it. You kind of do click into it. It's like when you start to, I don't know, just be more aware of the godliness that's around. Just be more open to it, not be so focused on the details. Because that's the thing. And we can focus on a detail that only spans 70 years. If you think about it, we can, on an individual level, focus on very small details. Oh, this is my house, this is what I have, this is what I don't have. And then you can focus out and say, but you know what, in 5 years, this will all change. Yeah. But then you can say, but man, in 70 years, I'll be dead. And so what goes on after that? In 10,000 years, look at all the lives that will have been lived. And then what after that is still remaining? What is still there? Like, I don't want to hold on to something that is only 70 years old. Yeah. I don't want to hold on to something that's even 1,000 years old. I don't want to hold on to any theory. I don't want to hold on to any religion. I want to know what is the Alpha and the Omega. What is the thing that's going to last forever? And has been, is, and always will be. Well, God. We could talk about that and what does God mean, but I understand it. And so I've already been to that point where it's like, okay, God is what I need to be focused on. And it's not like a cultish type of religious thing. I mean, I guess people do call it religion, but we can sit here and talk about, well, what's the difference between religion and the opposite? Yeah. So that's it. That's the focus. And any time you get, look, we can work on our lives. We can do things. We can accomplish things. But what's at the forefront? What's above all that? There's a scripture where it says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added unto you." I think the important thing is to not focus on the, okay, well, I can't wait for the all else to be added unto me. It's like, forget it. If it comes, great, but who's at the top all the time? God. So seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. Keep it first, and what else can bother you? What else matters?
Well, just real quick, it's almost a catch-22 because you can't trick God, and Amen. You can't seek the kingdom of heaven in hopes to get the all other things. It doesn't work that way. Right. And it's funny because you've heard it countless times, right? I've said it countless times, and our audience has said it countless times, or they probably know somebody that has, that you don't find the person you're looking for in a romantic sense until you stop looking. Mm-hmm. And it's so true. And I do believe that there are actual laws that speak to that, like the law of attraction and vibration. And like when you're out there and you're just so desperate and you're looking around everywhere and you're not confident and all this, but then when you become content with who you are and you're no longer looking for a significant other, that's when it happens. And it's the same thing, like seek the kingdom of heaven first. I mean, once you do that and you forget about all the other stuff, even when it comes, you don't even realize it. Yeah, you're like, you might have aha moments, right? When you're like, oh my gosh, where'd all this stuff come from? But you're still, so infatuated with God and your identity in that. Yeah, that's a great place to be.
Yeah, amen. And so, well, it's like, we set our own selves up for failure too when we don't get what we expect. When you have these high expectations, and it could be menial things too. It's like, oh, I can't wait to go to the restaurant, and I hope they have that special. And you get there and they have it, and then whatever clicked, whatever neurons connected there, then you get that feel good feeling, like, oh yes, like they have what I wanted. But if they don't, it's not that big a deal because you didn't really want it for that long and you don't really care. It doesn't affect you. But the thing that you want, it seems like this, like the thing that you want longer, once you get it, it makes you really, really happy. And if you don't get it, you get really, really sad. But that's self-imposed. Yeah. We create our own hells, really. I mean, you got the hell, but then you got our little mini hells that we create for ourselves because of our expectations. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you don't do anything or try for things, but it's like, in what state of mind are you in while trying to go for these things? Is it anxiousness? Is it fear that if you don't get it, or is that what's driving you? Fear? It's like, man, that would be an awful motivator. So I think that's very important too, to always be regulating that in yourself and being aware of, okay, where's my like excitement going towards? What am I hyping myself up about for? And I've lived like that for a while, and it's a big letdown because even when you do get it, then it doesn't matter. It ends like that, and you go to the next thing, and so you're in this perpetual state of always feeling like you need to go for things and expect things, and so it's very exhausting.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of the classic scenario when you go to the fast food restaurant, and let's just say you're not through the drive-thru. Let's just say you go in and you have an agenda. You expect the same thing that's happened every time you've gone there before. You tell them your order, they take your money, and within a couple 30, 40 seconds, you got your meal. But then you find out that, they got to drop a new thing of chicken in, and it's going to be 7 minutes of waiting. And you flip out, man. Or you look at a place and it's understaffed, So I have been guilty of being the person that's in the wrong more times than I've been innocent. But recently, at least the last like 9-10 years since I became a Christian, I've done better at being objectively aware of myself in those situations. And I don't always succeed, but when you sit back and you're like, okay, like they don't have enough staff to do what they need to do, and so it's going to take a lot longer, and you're content with that, and you look around at the chaos of the customers, it's sickening. I mean, it's sad.
Yeah.
People treat people like crap, and you're like, my goodness, man, this is another human being. He's no different than you.
Right.
Like, he's doing the best he can or she can with what they're working with. Right. 2 people called off sick. Like, give them some grace, and you apply that situation to everything in life. When you don't get what you expect. Yeah. But see, here's the thing: I've never actually consciously gone into something with that awareness of like, okay, don't have any expectations. That'll be interesting to apply, because it's natural for us to expect what we've always gotten. Yes. Yeah. And so I mean, it'll be interesting to like, let's just say, because I like to eat at Chipotle more often than not, because it's on the healthier side of fast food restaurants. So it'd be interesting to start going into Chipotle and say, man, I hope that the line's not too long, but if it is, oh well, and I hope the service is great, and I hope the steak's done well, but if it's not, it is what it is. Instead of like setting up a bad frame and being like, man, I can't wait for this great steak, and it's going to be fast, and I'm going to go through the line so fast.
Yeah, it's like the quintessential first world problem is seeing that person flip out when they didn't get their order wrong at the fast food line. It's like, wow, man, we are super privileged when our minds can be focused on something so stupid. I mean, for lack of a better term, stupid. It's like, dude, you didn't get your cheese on your cheeseburger, and you're going to murder. And we see it in videos too, where somebody gets so mad they shoot somebody. It's like, oh my God, we're rage? Oh yeah, road rage. People get out of their cars and start beating the crap out of each other because somebody pulled in front of them. Look, man, where your treasures lie, there your heart will be also. Man, I'm telling you, if we can wire ourselves, because we do that, we have expectations, we have a goal, we achieve it, we get some kind of neurological chemical response that makes us feel good. We're walking around proud, joy, at peace, or whatever it is. But man, what if I could set myself up in a way so that I can always be in that state of that, whatever state you want to call it, when you receive something that you've wanted. And so why not set it up in a way so that you can pull from that source constantly? It doesn't have to be anything of a material happening. It's the spirit. It's the spirit world. It's the you want to call it a realm, you want to call it something, is another dimension that you can pull from, that is the same exact feeling of getting what you want, because there's happiness and joy, right? So that's the key, man. It's where your treasures lie, there your heart will be also.
That's an interesting thought, because science would speak to that, and everything that you just talked about, it's called the reward something that releases dopamine and another chemical into your body that gives you that heightened excitement and joy. So it's a scientific like fact of how this interacts. Like, you perceive something as good, and then because of that, it releases certain chemicals in your body, and then you get that heightened state of whatever, joy, peace, excitement, whatever. So it'd be interesting to try to figure out a way. It's like Pavlov's, or was it Pavlov that did the dog thing?
Yeah, Pavlov with it.
Yeah, you know, and to set yourself up for that, it'd be hard. I think it'd be hard though, but I think it's probably possible.
Tom, I think that's the whole, at least a big chunk of the preaching of the word. It's Jesus came and talked about it. That's how I see it. I mean, look, there's a lot more going on too, because then you have like judgment, and then you have God at the throne, and then there's judgment for your sins, and then your afterlife and all that. And people may not want to get into that, but that's fine. But here's the thing. Look, what do you think? I mean, the way I see it, I mean, I'm talking to myself. It's like, well, what do you think Christ was saying during the whole ministry? Not only believe in him, but also it's like you can look at the scriptures, and he says, for example, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall guide your paths. Well, once you start getting into the word, you start thinking like, what is this, like, trust in him? And then I am the light of the world. Whosoever shall follow me will not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. How about my yoke is easy, my burden's light? It's like, well, what yoke? What burden is light? What are you talking about? And I think that to me in my spirit is what I feel when I think about what Jesus is talking about, is pull from God. Pull from the eternal, everlasting source. That's what you have to have your focus on, because where your treasures lie, there your heart will be also. Our treasures are all our little worldly things that we set up for ourselves. Mm-hmm. Those are our treasures. Hey, if I get $1 million tomorrow, I'll be so happy, because guess what? That was where my treasure has been, in finances. Or how about love? Or how about status? Yeah. Education, knowledge. I mean, there's people out there who want to cram in so much knowledge because that's where their treasures lie. They think, I mean, look, I'm not saying be dumb. I'm saying go ahead, be the most knowledgeable person on earth. But guess what? Even though you have all the knowledge that you have, there's still way more you can gain. So you're never going to, how are you going to fill that cup? When Christ says, my cup is overflowing. I was like, with what? With God. Yeah. And so look, money, you can have $1 million. Guess what? $1 million isn't 2. You can have 10 houses, but 10 houses isn't 20. Mm-hmm. You could have a following on your social media account of 1 billion people, but guess what? 1 billion isn't 2 billion. And you can always do that. You're going to say, and that's greed. And so guess what? Greed's a sin. Don't be greedy. What's the Psalm 23? I think it's 23, right? The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. I shall not want what? Well, I shall not want sin. I shall not want hell. So I think that's key, man. But we are constantly bombarded with, this is what you need. Have this. If you don't have this, then this. And then we spend our every single minute just in a perpetual state of we don't have what we're supposed to have. Yeah. And so, man, that's just baseline, low vibration, if you want to speak on the in terms of science, low level consciousnness. But man, it's just not being aligned with the spirit.
Well, yeah. I agree completely with that. And, you know, I think there's a lot of science speaks to that in a couple different ways. I mean, especially with what Bruce Lipton's doing, but also if it's Pavlov's hierarchy of needs, it's Maslow. Okay. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, and same thing, like you take that triangle and you also take Bruce Lipton's fight or flight, survival mode. Mm-hmm. So when you don't have your basic needs met, it is so hard. I want to just say genetically, because I think that'll encompass all of, your human material body, but it's so hard genetically, to get outside of that mentally, because what you're talking about is not tangible. Like it's a perception. It's the immaterial, but what you're using to get that is the material, right? Like it's your body that is perceiving these things and feeling a certain way, and you're, like Bruce says, when you're, an animal is coming to attack you, all your blood rushes to your legs so that you can run. And when it's rushing to your legs, then it's not in your your stomach, and it's not feeding your intestine and making it healthy. It's fighting the outside. And so there is this element of like actual resistance. Like there's actual resistance to doing what you're talking about when you have your basic needs. So to I don't know how to marry those two, but to get above those and to acknowledge that. And I think, it's a shame. It really is a shame that that the Bible isn't taught in elementary and middle school, if not for the sake of okay, God is real, for the teachings themselves, and like when God says, look at the birds of the air, and look at the animals, like they don't store up for themselves food, and look at the flowers on the ground, look how they're clothed, and they're here today and gone tomorrow, and how much more do I love you? And then he goes on to say, how much life can you add to it by worrying?
Amen.
And it's like, wow. Like that today, man, I was so stressed at one point of the day, and I was consciously trying to talk myself, into peace, and calmness, and change my perspective. And that just hit me today. And it was like, at the end of the day, when you can't do anything else and you've done all that you can, that's all you can do. And then to worry about anything beyond that, that's out of your control, is not healthy. Yes. It's like there is an element or responsibility to do what you can to, provide or whatever, make things happen. Like you can't just twiddle your thumbs and say, well, God, come on, bring me money. You got to go out there and do stuff. But once you've done everything you can and you've been, diligent with your time, what good is it to stress? Yeah.
Yeah. You can think about, we mentioned this just a little bit ago. You can now think about even you personally. Think about all the things that you're going to have. It's like envision it. I mean, I made a vision board. You made a vision board. People make vision boards. Think about all the things that you have, and then think about all the things that you're going to have. Mm-hmm. And now think about all the things that you are not going to have. We can do that, and we can do that endlessly. We have this idea of what we're going to have. It's like this much stuff. You can probably put in the palm of your hand when you're thinking on a grander scale. And then now you can think about all the things that you're not going to have. But think about what you have, and think about your ability right now to be able to tap into the infinite source, to be there. And look, you did it today. You thought about a scripture, and just by thinking about something that you read in the past and you repeated it, you went somewhere. Yeah. It's like, where'd you go? It's like, where did your mind go? And the scientists will say, well, we looked at Tom's brain under a scanner while he was having these thoughts, and these neurons just connected to these ones, and there you go. It's all just science. It's all just material-based. It's just chemicals. I mean, we could give Tom a shot of something, and he'll have that same feeling. It's like, okay, yeah, but no. And I don't want to get into that, but when God created the universe, when the universe was being created by God and where is God pulling from? Where is the source? Where does that exist? We only look at the material. We only look at we only look at empirical evidence, what can be seen, smelled, touched, studied under a microscope. But what did Jesus, and this is me thinking to myself, what did Jesus mean when Thomas came up to him and said, he didn't believe. He's like, I got to see him. Because all the disciples were like, hey, man, Jesus is back. And he came over there and he's like, I need to see it. And then he saw Jesus, and then he fell down on his knees and he said, my Lord and my God. And then Jesus was like, Thomas, because because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. And then Jesus went on to say, blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. And so that right there proves to me that the material world doesn't come first. It's underneath the eternal plane. It's underneath all that field. Like I said, I don't know what you want to call it, the realm, the field, the another dimension or whatever. Yeah. But it exists. Because it exists. So, and I think this is a big part of Jesus' ministry, is to kind of say, hey, you guys, this is what's up. This is what's going on. Aside from talking about God, there's more that goes along with it, and part of that is that field that. And I didn't want to call it a field, because then that makes it that the mind wants to conjure up an image, and it's not an image. It's not even a realm. That's the thing. That's why I can't put a word on it. You can call it a realm. You could call it another dimensional plane. Yeah. And that's why this has been one of the hardest things to debate or talk about or study, or especially science. They're just like, man, listen. Science, as we continue to get more advanced, we make more incredible discoveries that we just can't explain. It's like, first, there was a time where we thought, look, the atom is now the smallest element. There's nothing smaller than the atom. And then it was like, okay, hold on a second. No, there is something smaller than an atom. It's this. And they're like, okay, well, wait a minute. 20 years later, however long, once we got better at making microscopes, we say, okay, guys, hold on a second. It turns out that inside all that, we go deeper, but it turns out not to be material. Now it's actually an energy wave. It's just it's a oscillating thing or vibrating thing that it's not even material. It's like energy. It's like, what is this? Yeah. And so science is constantly trying to figure this thing out, but the problem is that science always is going to persistently reach a precipice or a chasm, that the only way to leap across the material, and this is how God designed it, is it requires faith and belief, which is an immeasurable thing. Yeah. It's not even a thing. It's just, you can't, the only way to even access it is through faith. That's the only way. Yeah. And it's intentional.
It's impossible to please God without faith.
Amen. And I remember talking to our good friend Ron, and we were talking about exactly what we just said. It's like, man, it's like our only real purpose here is faith. Otherwise, what are we? We're just material, physiological stuff that just has to rely on the material world. What kind of existence is that? It's only good when things are going good, and it doesn't ever come to your consciousness to start asking these questions. Yeah. You're just kind of like, hey man, like a dog. You go throw a dog in a park, and the dog runs around, he just chases things, and he rolls around on the grass, he chases a ball, he eats something, he sniffs something, and it's like, man, this dog is totally content. It's not even aware of anything else, so of course it'd be content. But once we start saying, gosh, what is it, or where is the nature of the universe, like where did we come from, what's going on here? And it's like, you get to the point where it's like, you know what, these questions are too big, let's not even bother. I'm just gonna go back to my regular life. Yep. But then you're like, well, what are you going back to? What is it? What is your life and all this stuff? And if it's going great for you, fine, you're like the dog in the park, you're just going to be very content. But there's going to come, as a human being, there's going to come a time where you're going to start to think. And if you close it off, if you try to ignore that, then you start to become your spirit starts to dampen, and you start to become mad, angry, bitter, and you don't necessarily might even know why, or depressed. Or you might be like, gosh, I have no purpose in this life. Like, why do we ever feel like we need to have purpose? What's the point of that? Having purpose. So, but it's just all points to God. And that's it.
Yeah, it's interesting to read the Bible with that frame of mind that you're describing, because there are so many verses that allude to what you're talking about. You know, like when Jesus was at the well with the woman, and I think she was a Samaritan woman, and he was like, if he said something like, "If you would have known who I was, you would ask me to get you water." Or he either said that, or he said, "Here, have a cup of my water, you know, drink from me, and you'll never be thirsty again." You know, and then also Jesus, you know, said, "Man can't live on bread and food alone, bread and water alone. He must every word of the Father." You know, so you think about all the things. It's an enlightening perspective. You know, like a different teaching. Like if you think about what was his purpose here, you know. And then you think about the things that he said, and that's a powerful way to live your life through that perception, you know, and through that identity. And Jesus said in the Bible, find your identity in Christ. Like, let that be your identity, you know. And so that's exactly what you're saying, like finding your identity in him, and then when you do that, you won't waver when things change, as they will, because he never changes.
Amen, yeah.
And everything he says about you and knows about you and is constant, you know. So that's awesome. That's a powerful way to perspective.
Yeah. Because how can you pull away from somebody the what is untouchable, that the power that Christ is talking about, like that identity. I mean, we can choose to pull away from it, but no man can take that away from you unless if you allow them to, or him to, or her, or they, or a system. Yeah. And I think that's what is what can happen to us, is that we get pulled away by worldly things.
I just got this word picture when you said that about people getting crucified with smiles on their face. You know, people getting murdered for their faith, you know, and being completely content with it. Because, you know, you can take a lot of stuff away from a person, but you can't take, you know, that peace and knowledge of relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts? I mean,
well, you know, I think that's what's key. You know, we've spent a lot of time talking about subconscious program, and science is cool, man. It's cool to pull things from science and look at the world and study it under a microscope and find the answers, because that's what we want to do so bad. We want to know exactly how it all works so that we can have a handle on it. And that's what science does. They want to figure things out, like with health. It's like, look, man, this is what's making you sick. Well, we've done a lot of research and we've done a lot of studies. We have geniuses that work in the lab, and we're coming up with chemicals that can fix what's going wrong with you. And that's a lie, man. That's a lie. It's all a temporary fix. It's just a Band-Aid. It's not getting to the source of the problem, of any problem. And look, Limpton talks about this. He says you can cure yourself. And Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden, these guys are saying these things, and it's ancient knowledge. We just lost our way because we got too focused on the material world, and so anyway, last thoughts. Where's your treasures lie? You know, I think that's a good thing to think about. It's like, man, where do my treasures lie? Because wherever my treasures lie, there my heart is. So what is the things that I focus on most, and why? And last thing that Lipton talked about, which is great. He said in a talk that evolution is awareness. And so this is scary to think about, because you think, man, what am I not aware of right now at this moment? Like, I'm conducting my life right now, and I think I have a handle on things, but you know what? What am I also not aware of? Like, what else is going on out in the universe, because we can be very, very detail oriented with our schedule in our lives and what we focus on, but what's out there. Because look, man, one thing that I love to do is focus on, you could hold that astronomy book right, no, the other one, the little purple one, like, yeah, underneath that one, like this stuff right here, like this exists, the universe, man. And imagine how grand it is out there. And that's all going on. It's incredible stuff. And so it's like awareness. Like, what else can I be aware of that will be like really eye-opening, spirit lifting? Like, what else is out there? And I think that's what we're supposed to seek the kingdom of heaven. And not only that, but to get so caught up on seek the first kingdom of heaven, all else will be added unto you. We're so focused on that added unto you part, because we see all the stuff in the world that we want. And we're like, oh, I can't wait till it gets added to me. It's like, I wish it would be added to me a little faster. Yeah. But man, at the end of the day, it's like, if it all goes to dust, if you can't take anything with you when you die, what's the point of it? You know, and I think those are fun things to focus on. But anyway, those are my last thoughts. Just to be aware of that, and to really have faith, and I believe it, to have faith that there is other things to be aware of. And what is it? Seek it. Like, seek it just like you would anything else. Like any answer to any problems, like you go find the answer, you figure it out. Well, what else is there? And I think if through prayer and just through listening, God gives us those answers. I think he really does. We can't approach God as a very distracted person. Divided attention. You know, like when somebody's talking to you and they're doing 9 things at once, it's like, okay, well, how do we approach God? How do we pray to God? We got 30 distractions, and it's like, so that's what I'm going to do, man. I want to be more aware of things. We'll find some cool things out. Last words.
I don't have any. I mean, this is all, what you just did was just gave a different perspective into Jesus's ministry. You know, like, what was the point of him coming other than to share the good news that he's available to you? And to take that perspective, God in the Bible gives us illustration of how humanly parents will give good gifts to their children, but how much better are the gifts that God gives us? Amen. You know, and we don't even tap into that, you know? Yeah. Like, the promises that God made in the Bible for us, you know, that are real and true. Like, it's alarming how little I think about that and meditate on that on a yearly basis. Yeah. It's mind blowing. So actually, through this whole conversation, I can't wait to get home and just open up my Bible. Yeah, amen. Like, I just want to, start in Matthew and keep going through it and feed myself, because, man, I've gotten so sidetracked with the day-to-day and the irony. And
all of us, man, we all do. And
irony or urgency, no.
Yeah, so that's I guess that's, you just saying that reminded me or makes me think, just, man, if you have anything, if you want, I would say press into the word. If you know anything about Christ, the Bible, start reading it. You might have your already preconceived notions, but read the word and really try to understand what Christ was saying and what it really means. It's not just some thing to believe and then that's it. There's more to it. There's information there. Read between the lines if that makes sense, or just figure it out. Like, what is Christ saying? What is it? And if you press into it, if you really want to know, it becomes revealed to you. It really does. That's how God works.
It's interesting because what I'm talking about, a perspective change, right? And I think it's going to have a great impact on my life going forward, what you just described. And it reminds me of a perspective that I had 5 or 6 years ago that was life changing. And when I first became a Christian, I was very legalistic, and I thought that the Bible was God's way of teaching us how to be good people, and how to like follow rules and have other people obey those rules. And it really irritated me when other people didn't, that claimed to be a Christian and whatnot. And so I went around and corrected them. And then I heard this saying 5, 6+ years back, and it was that God didn't come to make bad people good. He came to make dead people alive. And then I started to realize that when I was doing that, I was playing God. Like I was the one judging and being him. And it would upset me when people did things like bad behaviors, and then I had just a complete shift of perspective, and now it doesn't bother me at all. It is not my job to correct people's behavior. And it's like a weight off, of your shoulders when you carry that burden, because it affects you. And so it's great to think about that, because that perspective change, man, it enlightened me so much as to how I read the Bible and how to love other people that had different beliefs. Like now, man, like this is hyperbole to make a point, but like now I don't care if you're not saved. Like if you don't believe in Jesus, like let's just love each other. And if you see something in me that you like, and I'm open about my faith, but man, you can ask me or you'll hear it in my dialogue. But man, I am not about to shove what I believe down your throat, because I want to love you as you are, and hope that you get to where I am naturally through whatever process, because you know how it is. Like we were being preached to way before we were ready to hear, and we just weren't ready for it. So I'm excited to read the Bible with a new eyes.
Well, amen. So we'll catch you later. Bye.